Hi, I'm Liz, and this is EMO's Creative Studio. In this video, we're going to be showing you two different things. Part 1 is going to show you how to make a block called Quilt As You Go. This particular Quilt As You Go that you see right here is 13.5 inches square using my fabric scraps that have different measurements of width. Another way to make a Quilt As You Go block, which is this one and it's rectangular, is using fabric scraps from my jelly rolls. The jelly roll, as you know, is a prefabricated, pre-cut package of fabric that are 2.5 inches wide by width of fabric, which is usually 44-45 inches long. Part 2 of my video, I'm going to show you what I'd like to use my Quilt As You Go blocks. This particular block that I'm going to be making, I'm going to show you how to make a pouch. I'm going to show you how to insert the zipper, how to place the tab. If you're going to be selling your pouches at craft fairs or online, I'm going to show you how you put in your label, and I'm going to also show you how to finish off the inside of your pouch so that it looks very professional. I'm also going to show you with this particular Quilt As You Go block how to make a rectangular table runner. So let's get started. So let me show you what I have to get started. I have my label that I'm going to be using, inserting into my pouch that I'm going to be making. I have my zipper that I've picked out that it coordinates with these colors. I have my pieces of fabric that I've cut out from my fabric scraps to save time. This will be used for the tab, and these different sizes of length and width will be used for the top part, the Quilt As You Go portion. This back piece, we'll iron this out, take out all the wrinkles, and this will be the back part of the Quilt As You Go block. And then here is my batting. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that all my fabric pieces are ironed out nice and straight. I do not pre-wash any of my fabric. That is going to be something that you have to decide on your own. Listening to other YouTubers, some will say pre-wash your fabric, some say don't. I don't like to pre-wash fabric because 9 times out of 10 it comes out super wrinkled, and I just don't want to be ironing. That's my preference. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to iron out all the folds and the wrinkles on my back portion. I still do not know what size my block is going to be. I know it's going to be smaller than the one that I showed you because of the width of this fabric. So I'm ironing out, giving a shot of steam to make sure that all the folds and wrinkles are taken out. I'm going to place this to the side. I'm going to make sure all of my other little pieces are all ironed out without wrinkles and folds and whatnot. Okay. You can see that these are all fabric scraps. None of them are nice looking, but we will fix those cuts before we start placing them onto our batting and back piece. So I'm going to get rid of that. I want to iron out all these pieces, make them nice and good looking. More pieces, and we're done ironing. What I want to do next is I want to figure out the size of my block. This particular piece of fabric that I have right here measures out, without cutting it, measures out to about 10.5, and whatever length I want to do. So what I'm going to do first of all is I want to make sure that I cut my fabric evenly and I'm probably going to cut it to 10 inches to make a 10-inch square. So as you can see right here, it's off a little. So I'm going to fold my fabric in half. I'm not going to make a crease because I just ironed all the creases out. As you know, your fold makes a natural line. So it's going to be a straight line automatically with the fold. I'm going to find a black line right here on my cutting mat and put my fold up to that line. My numbers are down here, an inch in 1 inch increments or segments. The edge of this side is against the edge of the black line right here, as you can see. So I'm going to line this up really nice, and then I'm going to take my ruler, which is 13.5 by 5 or 6.5. I'm going to measure it, line up one of these black lines to my fold, and I'm going to measure it up to the 10-inch line. I want to make sure, which is right here, I want to make sure that I cut this and I square it off nicely to make a nice, as perfect as can be, 10-inch piece of fabric. Take my rotary cutter, open it up, hold down my ruler, and slice across. Close my rotary cutter and get rid of my piece of fabric. I threw it away in the garbage can that I have below. I'm going to open this up, and now it is a square piece of fabric. So I'm not going to use the selvage side. I'm going to use the cut side because I know that this piece of fabric was cut square along this edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure it up at the 10-inch mark right here. The cut that I just made down here, I'm going to measure it up to any line right here so I can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to take my ruler and measure it up to the 0 line, which is right here. Making sure that this black line on my ruler is up against the edge of the fabric right here, and the edge of the ruler is right here along the black line of my cutting mat. I'm going to open up my rotary cutter like this, hold down my ruler, and slice across, making sure that I put the edge of the blade against the edge of the ruler. So now we have a 10-inch square piece of fabric that we're going to use for the back of my 10-inch square quilt as you go. I have a huge, giant piece of batting, but I don't want to be wasting it because I actually use all the pieces that I cut off from the batting, because the batting can be quite expensive if you get a better quality batting. So what I want to do is I want to fold it in this manner with the selvages right along here. I know that I have to cut a 10-inch piece of batting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the edge, the natural fold, the fold which makes a natural line, and line it up to this black line right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the edge, the selvage edge of my fabric to the 10-inch mark right here, making sure that my fabric is nice and even on the lines like it's supposed to be. And then I'm going to take my ruler and place it along the edge right here. The line of the ruler is down here along the fold of the batting. I'm going to start my cut down here on the black line, the edge. Cut part way, and then I'm going to slide my ruler up and cut it all the way across. I'm going to get rid of the big portion of batting, and now I know that it is 10 inches across this way. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up, which is a straight line that I just made, and I'm going to cut this crooked edge. As you see right here, it's crooked. I'm going to cut it off. Again, line up your batting to the black line, which is right here. I'm going to take my trusty ruler. I'm going to line up a black line down here at the bottom, the straight line. I'm going to hold it down, open up my rotary cutter, and slice across. Now I'm ensured that this line is going to be a straight cut. So now I know that it's 10 inches across this way. I want to make it a 10-inch square piece of batting. So I'm going to keep this bottom on the black line and move it to the 10 inches, which is right here. Take my ruler and place it against the edge right here. Let me see if I can make it a little bit closer so that you can see the black line right here. Black line right here, which is the edge. All right, let me rearrange everything because I know I knocked it over as I was moving things around. Line up my ruler, the black line down here. You see the black line down here? And line it up with the black line right here. Take my rotary cutter, open it, butt it up against the ruler, and slide very slowly. You have to control your rotary cutter. You can't just let it go because it will make a crooked cut. You have to be very conscious that you are holding it against the ruler and dragging it up or rolling it up. So now we have a perfect 10-inch square piece of batting that's going to go in the center of our block. So now let's take the bottom piece that we cut earlier, which is this one. And what we're going to do is now we are going to place it right side, wrong side, right side. You see the difference? Right side, wrong side. We're going to place it right side down onto your mat. Let me give you a better view. There you go. We're going to put it right side down on the mat. We're going to take our batting and we're going to put it right on top. Hopefully you measured out really well and it's even all the way across, up and down, as you can see here, like this. And again, this is a 10-inch square block that we're going to be making. So all my pieces of fabric I'm going to put right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the longest one, which I believe is this one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the middle of my block. Now I'm really not going to worry about these two pieces right here because I know I'm going to be sewing over it. But for those of you that are a little bit conscientious, let me use that word, I'm going to go ahead and cut this off so that you can feel a little bit more comfortable with what you're doing. So I folded it in quarters. Again, I am measuring the black line on a fold. Take my rotary cutter and I'm going to slice off that oops right there. I'm going to throw my garbage away and I'm going to open it up. Hopefully I didn't make a fold in it. So again, it's nice and even. I'm going to put it in the center, right side up facing you, and then I'm going to pick another piece, but I'm going to pick something that's going to fit across this way. Again, we're going to put this one now. Actually, I'm going to change it up. So in placing the fabrics, I see that this one is pretty wide and it's going to take up the block. I have another piece that's right here. So what I want to do with this particular piece of fabric is I'm going to cut it in half because I don't want it to overtake the block. So again, I'm going to take my trusty ruler, using the edge as a natural line. Oh, let's see, maybe I will cut it. Let me turn it around so I can see it right. Maybe I'll cut it to 3 inches. That'll take the bulk off. Open my rotary cutter, slice it up. Now I have 2 pieces of fabric that I can use in this block. So again, you put the first piece in the center. I'm going to not center the piece because I don't want to waste all this fabric, so I'm going to put an edge. I'm going to put it at the edge right here, and then I have this tail at the end that I'm going to leave hanging. I decided that I want to use the 3-inch length of fabric, so I'm going to put right sides together in this manner, and then I'm going to sew down this line right here. I'm going to use 1/4 inch because I don't want the fabric to be flopping around. I'm going to go ahead and pin it. I'm not going to pin it at the part where I'm going to sew. I'm going to pin it away. I'm going to sew here, and I'm going to pin up here. So now let's move over to the sewing machine. Now you see here I have my fabric. The edges are equal or even. It's at diagonal. This foot is a scant 1/4 inch. I have the needle in the up position right now because I'm going to start sewing at the edge of the batting and the backing. So I'm going to lower my foot, lower my presser foot, hold on to my threads, and I'm going to start sewing. I'm going to make sure that I sew this edge of the foot stays on the edge of the fabric. I'm not in a race, I'm not in a rush to make this. I'm just going to go ahead and sew, make sure that I'm making as straight a line as possible. Also making sure that I don't have my fingers getting caught underneath the foot and then getting a beautiful needle stuck in your finger. Done that twice, I don't want to go for a 3rd time. I stop my machine, I pull up my needle. I do not backstitch on any of my quilts because that makes it too bulky for me. It's not recommended to backstitch, but you will find some people telling you on YouTube that you should backstitch. So I'm cutting my threads, putting my threads to the side, taking my pins out. Sorry about my arm. And you're going to see when you open it up is how you've got a nice quilt as you go pattern. Alright, let's go back to the ironing board cutting table. Now we're going to iron. We want to set the seams, which means we want to warm up those fibers so that we can have a nicely ironed piece of fabric. I'm going to open it up, finger press it, and now I'm going to iron it. Shot of steam, shot of steam. There you go. Now what I'm going to do, I like to work opposite ends. Instead of adding on this end, I'm going to add on to this end. Right sides together. I'm going to try to save as much as my fabric over here as possible because you never know when I might need it for a small little project. Again, right sides together. I'm going to sew along this edge, so that means I'm going to pin on this edge. I want to make sure that I pin it and I don't pin it to the ironing board, so I'm going to pin it up here, pin it here, pin it here. Now let's go back to the sewing machine. Now if you notice, I'm not going to start my sewing at this edge where the short little pieces are, or the beginning of the pieces are. I'm going to start it up here. And that's a good thing, because if you start sewing opposite ends, it avoids you having bowed looking quilts or a quilt as you go blocks. So again, I put my presser foot down, I lower my needle, I'm starting on the edge of the fabric right here. Again, making sure that the edge of this foot is at the edge of the fabric. And now I'm going to start sewing. I'm not going fast, it's not a race. I want to make sure that I get as straight a line as possible, because I don't want to have my block look funny or all stretched out of shape. We're sewing. Placing the needles over here, or pins over here on the edge, on the opposite edge, allows me to pay more attention to my sewing and not worrying about if I'm going to pull out the pin. So now I'm done sewing. Pull it out, cut my threads, and now let's go back to the ironing board cutting table. Now I want to take my pins out, and I want to iron this open. Again, we're going to set the seam, warming up those fibers. Open up your piece of fabric, gently finger press, and now we're going to steam press it open, giving it a shot of steam. Do you see how your quilt as you go block is starting to form? Now I'm going to go on this side, and I'm going to find a piece of fabric that I'm going to want to place here. Now I have to remember that I have to make sure that I cover the batting. So I'm going to use this one. Again, right sides together, making sure that I have a little bit of fabric coming out on the outside of the batting. Take my pins, pin my fabric, put this to the side. Oh, let me show you what it looks like in the back. You see sewing marks right there? This is how you have a piece of fabric that's already quilted. Now, good thing I turned it over. I'm seeing that it's starting to look a little lopsided, but we'll take care of this, because I think the batting is a little bit larger than the fabric. But when I go to square this up, you'll see how I take care of that. All right, let's run over to the sewing machine. Place our piece in. We're going to sew in the opposite direction. So we're going to start at the edge where the shorter portion of the edge of the fabric is, if you understand what I'm saying. Presser foot down, needle in the down position, fabric lined up to the edge of the presser foot. Again, the presser foot is a scant 1/4 inch. Start my machine. Make sure that I'm sewing on the edge right here, edge of fabric to the edge of the foot. So. And stop. Now let's run over to the cutting table. Now we're here at the ironing board. We're going to take out the pins. We're going to set the seam. Open up our piece of fabric. Gently finger press, and now give it a shot of steam. Now you have your one side of your block completed. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take the other side, your last piece, right sides together. Make sure that you have enough of your fabric edge going beyond the quilt over here as well. Take pins, 3 pins, pin them. Three. Now I'm going to run over to the machine and sew it. You get the gist of how to sew a quilt as you go, and then I'll come back and show you how it looks after it's been, all the pieces, the last piece has been sewn on. I have my last piece sewn on. Set the seam, open it up, gently finger press it. Now iron it, shot of steam across the whole block. When you turn it around, it looks just like this. Now you see all your pieces of fabric hanging out, and you've got your square right here. Now, I'm going to move my ironing board, and now we're going to cut and square up our block. Now you see the block is square like this. You've got all these pieces all cattywampus. Turn it. Make sure that you have all your pieces of fabric stretched out. You're going to have it square side to you. You're going to take your ruler and you're going to measure it up, making sure that you cut everything. Now, because I've got this long piece of fabric over here, I'm actually going to start cutting from right about here because I want to save this fabric. Up and all the way across. You see that you got it torn away like that. Turn your block around. Line it up with the edge of your back piece of fabric. Start at the edge. Cut it across like this. Now you see how my rotary, because I wasn't really paying attention, went off to the side. Let's do this again. And our last side. Now we're going to measure it up like this. Measure it up like this. And now you have a nice 10-inch square quilt as you go block. Now you're ready to work with your other blocks or whatever you're going to do. It's turned out really, really nice. You see the stitching in the back. You can see the stitching in the back. And then this is the front side of your quilt as you go block. All right, we'll see you in part 2.